what I just noticed, we never actually talked about Paddington, so we have like 10 more minutes. Do you guys want to talk about Paddington? That would be a nice batch. um, so yeah, so I saw Paddington. Um, and honestly, if I give it my honest review, Paddington badge. If I give it my honest review, I think that it's a movie that in the last 5 minutes pretends like it built to a very meaningful, very complex, nuanced point, which is an interesting point actually. The ultimate point of Paddington that the movie tries to give is, look, Paddington is from Peru, but he belongs in London. And as a Peruvian immigrant in London that absolutely 100% adores London, that is a powerful message. That you don't need to stop being who you are and where you're from, which is an ironic message for Paddington, whose name isn't Paddington. But at the same time, you can decide that you belong somewhere else, that you fit in somewhere else. That is a powerful message. And it would have been a great message for this movie if only the movie had worked towards this message. And the movie does not work towards this message. Basically, the plot of the movie is um, Paddington travels to Peru to rescue his Aunt Lucy, who has disappeared. Um, and I don't know if you don't want spoilers, let me know. So I'll try to make this as spoiler free as I can. Um, and there is this Inca treasure that he needs to find his aunt. And there's some greedy characters that want that treasure as well. Those are the villains of the movie, basically. Um, and it's just very exoticizing. The first thing I noticed is that Antonio Banderas, I thought that he was going to play a Spaniard because he's Spaniard. I thought they were going to do the whole Spanish conquistador is still alive and wants to, get the gold. Um, but Chomnovsky says, spoil the crap out of the movie. um, but Antonio Banderas does not play um, a Spaniard. He plays the descendant of a Spaniard. So he plays a Peruvian. So he's basically, him and his daughter, both Peruvian, are the only Peruvians with actual dialogue that are human. Other than a Peruvian actor that pops up for 2 seconds in the immigration's office in the airport and says "Welcome to Peru," they're the only Peruvians that have lines, and they're not Peruvian actors, and they are white and European, and all around the characters, the rest are indigenous people that are used as decoration and background setup, so that you know that Peru is weird, exotic, rustic, poor, full of jungle. So it really is a very bad representation because it is really exoticizing of indigeneity. Including the bears, which are supposed the Peruvian bears are supposed to be like Peruvian indigenous. And there's a point towards the end of the movie where they end up discovering um, that if um, if they discover El Dorado, and El Dorado is actually a not a treasure, like as in coins, but it's an orange grove. It's a for reasons they don't explain it. Um, and these Paddington arrives at this orange grove, and one of the first things he does is teaches the bears how to make marmalade. So first of all, oranges are not indigenous to Peru, and second of all, are you kidding me that Peruvian bears would not know how to make marmalade? We have marmalade in Peru. We have one of the best cuisines in the world, and you're teaching them how to make marmalade. Like we're very proud of our cuisine. Like And it doesn't feature at all in the movie, which is ironic considering that Paddington loves sandwiches. So he loves food, right? But they don't mention food at all. Um, Magic of Carl says, "Do we at least get to see Peru?" Um, you do get to see jungle in Peru, and there's one montage. So first of all, they go to Peru on a Helix plane, so not a jet. For some reason, even the plane needs to be rustic. And then they arrive in Lima, and there's this a little montage of what Peru is like, which basically poor, and like with indigenous people in the background. Um, and then magically they take a bus to Cusco, which is like not bus distance away. You would need an interprovincial bus. Not what they took. But they arrive in Cusco and then they immediately go into the jungle, so you don't really get to see Peru. Um, and so yeah, the Peruvian characters are all white, and if they're not white, they're indigenous people in the background. There's some stupid references to Indiana Jones, which I hate because Indiana Jones is a guy that steals from Peruvians, in his own movie. And then that's it. There's nothing that contributes to this supposed message of where you are and where you're from are is difficult puzzle to put together. Um, Paddington is just like flabbergasted by modern technology. He has basically forgotten all about the jungle. There's one moment when they say like, "Oh, Paddington doesn't really fit here in the jungle. He's like a city bear now. He's too London now," which is bad. Um, but generally, it's very exoticized. It's very much what I suspected. Like kids won't notice, but I guess that's also bad because then it normalizes it. But adults will, like especially if you have some sensitivity towards indigenous topics. Indigenous people are just background. They're just decoration. It's really insulting. And then of course it's the trope of the Inca lost treasure and stuff like that. It's it's just bad. Also, as a movie, I think it's bad. There's not much in it. Oh, that is one thing. Changebox. The some of the most amazing scenery in the world had to be replicated by computers. They replicated by computer, but at the same time they use so there's a specific shape in mountains that when you stand in Machu Picchu and you look from Machu Picchu towards the mountains, you see a specific shape of mountains. It's very recognizable to anyone who's been there or anyone who's Peruvian. And I recognized them. And they wanted to tell me that that place was not really Machu Picchu. It was El Dorado. They never mention it as Machu Picchu. They just mention it's the secret ruins of El Dorado that no one had ever found before. But the background was the background of Machu Picchu. And the structure looked like Machu Picchu. So they just basically removed all the historical content of all the significance of Machu Picchu away, and they turned it into this empty shell of a place that is only good for the Europeans to discover El Dorado. It's uh, Peru becomes the scenery through which the Browns rediscover their family ties, and through which the antagonist of the story learns his completes his arc, and where Paddington just discovers where he's from. That's it. Peru is nothing else. But it is very recognizable how they used that footage from Machu Picchu. So to me, that's Machu Picchu, but the movie tells me it's not, which is ridiculous. It's that bad. So yeah, it is really frustrating how Peru is completely exoticized in this movie about Peru. So I have very I don't know I'm very disappointed because the movie dangles a interesting message to me at the end, and then the rest of the movie, including the post credit scene, just destroys that message. Like the post credit scene is Hugh Grant, the antagonist of Paddington 2, meeting Paddington's family, extended family of bears. And you know what they do? One thing that I hate about Paddington is how Paddington forsakes his Peruvian identity so that he can be referred to as a train station, right? Because it's too difficult to pronounce his name. So why pronounce a Peruvian name when you can have a proper British name? That's in the book. So I think that is something that Paddington the movie in the 21st century should move away from. Like, why is Paddington's Aunt Lucy, who raised him as a child, who named him, why is she calling him Paddington? It's kind of mind blowing. But then at the end credit scene, when Hugh Grant meets the new family of bears, every single one of them has a train station name. There's Elephant and Castle, Clapham Junction. There's Piccadilly Circus, Leicester Square. These are all the names of Paddington's family, and it's played for laughs. And I'm like, you have just taken these bears' identities, stripped them out of uh, identities,